أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وبعد. My dear and respected brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuhu. Yet again, I would like to welcome you all to our weekly Hadith circle. We are still reading from the book on patience, which is a very good thing for all of us basically to be doing right now in these trying and awkward and difficult times. We have come to Hadith number 45 of the book, and very soon actually we will be finishing this Kitabu Sabr, or the chapter on patience. And tonight we will try to cover at least a couple of traditions. The first one is fairly short. It's a hadith I believe most of you have heard of before, but there is no harm to be reminded of it again. And then, of course, as we always do, we will look at this tradition a little bit closer. We will try to explain it further and contextualize it as well. As we do, we read this tradition like every other one in Arabic first. We then clarify any terms which may need clarification or explanation, and then we go into the lessons or morals of each tradition. So, وعن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال: ليس الشديد بالسرعة إنما الشديد الذي يملك نفسه عند الغضب. متفق عليه. والسرعة بضم الصاد وفتح الراء، وأصله عند العرب من يسرع الناس كثيرا. So it's a short hadith. Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu narrated, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, the strong person is not the one who is good at wrestling, but the strong person is the one who controls himself in a fit of rage. So the one who controls him or herself when angry, in a fit of rage, عند الغضب, anger. So this hadith, as I said, is fairly short. Okay, there is, however, maybe one term that we may point out, since even Imam al-Nawawi rahmatullah alayhi, who put this whole book together for us, he underlined straight away after mentioning this hadith that this term, which the Prophet ﷺ used, by which we understand the act of wrestling, okay, he said as-sur'atu with dhamma vowel on sad and fatha on ra, not sur'atu, okay, or sir'atu, which may mean something else, but as-sur'a, as-sur'atu. Yeah, the origin of that with Arabs is أي من يصرع الناس كثيرا, someone who wrestles with people a lot, like who argues and fights with people a lot. So they have given this basically now this name to the act of wrestling. Yeah, when people are wrestling, that's the term the Arabs would probably use until now. Al-Musari', something like that. Okay, a wrestler. As-Sura'a, the act of wrestling. Apart from this term, I really can't see anything else which is problematic or needs clarification. So I can tell you that since this hadith has been mentioned here as muttafaqun alayh, what it means is that both Imam al-Bukhari and Imam Muslim rahmatullah alayhima, they both noted or recorded this particular tradition in this version, in this way, in their respective works, which basically means that this hadith is of the highest authenticity that we have actually. Both of them have agreed on it, and they have included it in their respective works. And Imam al-Bukhari, he included this hadith, or he noted it down in the chapter of his collection or book on adab, which means good manners. So how he entitled the particular chapter in that book, he said one should be careful or in control of their anger. So that's how he entitled the whole chapter. Like part of our good manners is that is to control our anger, basically. That's what it means. Uh, and Imam Muslim, he included this hadith in a book that he called Kitabul Bir, which means the book of righteous deeds or righteousness. And he also entitled the particular chapter where we can find this hadith as the chapter on the excellence of the one who is in control of their anger when in a state of, when in a fit of rage. So he's saying that it's an excellent deed, okay? There's so much reward or excellence, merit to those people who are able to control their angers when the calamity strikes or when there is a difficult time. So that's how they recorded it. Now we can go to the benefits, but before we go there, I just want to point out, isn't this beautiful from our master, our teacher, our role model, our qudwa and uswa, our example, the Prophet ﷺ, that in his sayings, in his speech, he would use similes, okay? He basically here made a comparison. He used something that makes sense to us, something which we know, we have seen or witnessed, or even in television. Now you can watch, it's like a sport, wrestling, a type of sport. So he is using this very clear language and a comparison, a simile, and saying the strong man, a strong man, or a strong person, now even ladies wrestle, even on TV, is not the one who is really strong and good at wrestling. You know, like tough man, goes to gym regularly, built his muscles and takes the, the unnecessary things, in my opinion, or maybe long-term, very harmful and dangerous proteins and whatever, I don't know what people use, drink and eat, just so that they, build on their muscles and look like a beast. So the Prophet ﷺ said, the strong man is not really the person who is very good at wrestling, but the strong person is the one who can control their anger when in a fit of rage. So amazing comparison. Like you might really think like, oh, this is a very strong building because you look at the materials. But the really beneficial and strong building is the building that has good content taking place inside, or within its premise, inside of the walls, okay, in the space. And the same person goes about the people. Yeah, somebody may have a very strong build by birth, they are tall and the physique is perfect, muscly, whatever, and then they obviously even exercise, which is always good. Prophet encouraged swimming, horse riding, many different things like running, okay, jogging. So all those things are good, and we should be in a very top or best physical shape if possible, but that's not how you judge that someone is really strong. The real strength of a person lies within themselves, with the traits which are inside, inner. You can't really see them, but when the real time comes, they show up. And that's how you really know who is really intelligent, who is really wise. Likewise, you know who is really strong, who is really kind, who is really good, who is really friendly, who is really loving, when there is an occasion to show that quality. So very interesting. And then obviously he told us something else in this hadith, in this beautiful simile that he gives. Oh, there will be times when you will be pushed, like your buttons will be pressed, or someone will basically step on your foot. You got to withhold. You got to control your anger. You got to control yourself, your temper. So the Prophet ﷺ is saying that this will definitely happen to people, in their lifetime, in their job, in their workplace, in their businesses, in school, whatever they do, even in their normal, in their home, in their household. From their siblings, they might experience difficulties whereby they'll be tempered, which means like their patience will be tested, okay, and they'll be put to task to control themselves or to control their anger. So a very interesting hadith. So let us try to basically conclude at least a couple of lessons or benefits. if not even like a ruling, so like a kind of a ruling, yeah, I should say, so-called ruling. So first, Islam, it seems that came with this kind of saying, and many other sayings like it, to say that what is the real strength, okay? In, let's say, pre-Islamic era, like before Islam, the understanding was like I just told you, whoever is the fittest physically, tallest, biggest, strongest, heaviest, the most muscly, that was the real power, okay? So the real power was seen in the outward, in the physical appearance of the person, if you talk about an individual, and the real power of an empire, or let's say a dynasty or a family or a tribe, again was seen in their number. The bigger the army, the more powerful, okay? And then the equipment, whatever they had, this many swords, this many horses, yes, that's a strength, okay? That's a real strength. Whereas when Islam came, in Islam, yes, we don't deny that we are in need of some things, and we don't deny that it is better basically to be strong, yeah, physically and spiritually at the same time, than just being strong spiritually but declining physically or in physique. We agree with that. However, we say, what is if you weigh the two? Which one really counts and it's more important? So we realize that the real power or the real beauty and the real meaning is the more subtle one. So we say this power shifted into moral wrong. So it became like khuluqi, quwwa khuluqiyya. So the real power is if you were well mannered. Better praiseworthy traits you have within yourself, you are a better person. More of those, the better it is. Not necessarily if you have built your muscles everywhere. Likewise, Islam came and said, collective good mannerism is the noblest thing ever. It's not necessarily that we have, in every household, like, let's say, a master of martial arts and people who are, like 2 meters tall and all 100 and plus kgs heavy and all have this many muscles. The real power of a community is that if every household has as many people who have championed their good traits, yeah, they are all well mannered. That's what it is. So khuluqun hasan became the most prominent feature of somebody's personality and the heaviest good asset that they could have really with themselves to show the real power. And the same thing goes for a community or a society. If the society as a whole is moral, ethical, and upholds the moral assets and values, then we say it's powerful and strong society. The moment a society declines ethically, or let's say morally, or in manners, their manners drop down, and they do this and this and that, we no longer care how many of them there are, and we also no longer say that they are powerful and strong if there's all kind of mischief and bad mannerism or acts taking place among them. We say that's a declined, corrupt society, not a powerful and strong society or exemplary society. The exemplary personality is the personality which is well-mannered, and the same goes for a community. The exemplary and powerful and truly powerful community is the one that can show off with good manners, good traits, and good characteristics. So this is the first thing we learned from this hadith. Islam in a way is trying to basically put those praiseworthy traits, let's say good manners, up front. Yeah, they were hidden to some extent in pre-Islamic Arabia, for example, and other places. So Islam is trying, they always existed. I'm not saying that generosity didn't exist. I'm also not saying that bravery didn't exist. But Islam came and dug them somewhat out or under the surface and brought them up. And is basically trying to display that as the true banners that we need to wave at every place wherever we go. We need to basically we just need to show, yeah, uh, good manners wherever we go. And that's where the strength of our personality lies. Also, we learned from this hadith that mujahadatun nafs is called, this concept of fighting your own ego, okay? Struggling with your own self, like making so much effort to perfect your manners, as I said, your innermost traits or characteristics. So that's basically becoming a better person, improving your akhlaq, your character. That is the real war, the real struggle. Sometimes there could be some problem with a building. Maybe there was an earthquake or some strong wind, and it broke something, broke windows, okay, or broke some building down, like this. There was some destruction, or let's say even in war, shells drop on the roofs of buildings, and then there's all kinds of problems, and it will require some energy and power to mend it, to fix that, issue. But it's possible. You bring people, they can mend anything, they can fix it, and they can even fight back if there is a need to do that against an army, the opposition. It requires some power, but that's not the end of their struggle. They've done that, they fended off the enemy, or they fixed the building, they erected it again. But the real war that is constantly going on is the one whereby we try to improve our innermost qualities or characteristics. Like, we can never claim that we are perfect human beings. Ihsan kamil. There is a concept actually in Islamic ethics called ihsan kamil, means like the perfect personality, someone who has more or less perfected all the good traits within themselves and displaying them. Okay, he's put that into practice. However, we can call like the Prophet Muhammad like that, and maybe a very few individuals over the history of our Islamic history over the time. Most of us, it seems that we need lots of mending, a lot of effort still, to work harder and harder and very consistently and persistently to improve our inner being, okay, our inner traits. So in that sense, Islam tends to say or suggest that, this battle, the inner battle, seems to be harder, take, more effort, more energy, more discipline, more patience, okay, more of everything, you can say, than, for example, when we are called upon to take part in a real battlefield, like with armies, okay, or like I said, it could be a small, let's say, battlefield, which is like, oh, someone gave us a job to grow some vegetables, okay, on a particular morning, or to cut grass, or basically build a building, okay, and they said 20 of you, you got to put up this wall or 4 walls of a building within a couple of days. Or we're going to work hard, but we will put brick after brick on top of each other, and we will somehow finish the walls. We will erect the building, but the inner battle still carries on. Okay, when we did that, yet it took a lot of physical energy from us, and patience and discipline and everything. But while we were doing that, we still had to battle within our own selves. But once we finished that task and calmed down from that project or that job, our inner battle didn't end. It still carries on. So in that sense, we call that the major jihad, or the real battle that is always there, the battle against our own egos. And the lesser jihad is when you have to go out, really pick up some weapons and fight your enemy. That can't happen continuously. There is no war whereby there is a combat every single day, and every single day of your lifetime you will always face your enemy, like face to face. I don't think so. Something like that ever existed for a very long period of time. Even the strongest of armies that we know in the history of mankind, yes, there were some great battles which lasted over several days, I don't know if several weeks, I don't know, I'm not a great historian myself, but I have heard or read in history books of great big battles where thousands or hundreds of thousands of soldiers took place, and the battle lasted for several days continuously. Even then, I think what they mean is like they were still at night calm. Then the moment the dawn broke, again they started the combat. Allahu Alam. But even if you went during the night as well, the fight, all you are talking about is few days maybe. And who can fight continuously for hours and hours? No one. Everyone needs to drink and eat in between, and like regroup. We say, like, he's at the front line, but when he has no more energy, if he's lucky not to be killed, he goes back, regroups. Other people come who are fresh and they fight, and so on and so forth. But jihadun nafs, to be honest with you, brothers and sisters, even when we sleep, we might have some things we are doing, but the moment we wake up, immediately, from the first moment you wake up, you can choose to say, Alhamdulillahi alladhi ahyana ba'da ma amatana wa ilayhi nushur. Praises be to the one who gave us this blessing of life again, like woke us up. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave you back your soul so that you can have some more time to your life. Or you can wake up and swear, or na'uzubillah, do something else worse, hit someone straight away if you have somebody by you, or look at something indecent, or you can basically drink alcohol rather than brush your teeth properly and drink some fresh water or juice and make yourself nicely and ready nicely for your new day. So it's really down to us, but the mujahadat nafs is a continuous process. It will only end in this life after we pass away, we breathe our last. So in that regard, I think we are allowed to call it the greater jihad, and the lesser jihad the other one. And one more point we can deduce from this hadith. Arguably, this is the most obvious point and the bigger one, the biggest one, and that is, like I said, a kind of a ruling in a way. So this hadith, in a way, is saying to us that we need to control our anger. It's like there is an element of like command, okay, or it's like imperative, or an obligation almost. Muslims are supposed to, they are meant to control their anger, okay. So you can say that, or stay away from like tantrums or outrage, okay. So basically, you either control your anger to the extent that it doesn't go out of control, because we say when we lose our temper, like become really furious or angry, that means that we lost the control of our temper. Yeah, we lost the control of ourselves. You can just say, don't need to say temper. You lost the control of yourself. Look, he's like almost in, he looks, when people watch someone who is in rage and they're throwing things around or breaking things or screaming and shouting or hitting or moving excessively, or all people who observe that kind of a behavior, they say, well, he's gone mad. Or they say, like, he's like behaving like an insane. It really means that he lost his sanity temporarily. When you lose control of yourself, it's almost like you don't even know what you're doing properly. You're not in control of yourself, basically, put it this way. So in Islam, we say you got to minimize that. You must minimize that, or you are asked to distance yourself from such behavior. Okay, so if you know that you have problem with your anger, you got to go on a course for anger management. For example, Islam will say you got to do something about it. If you are a known person, or to yourself it's known that you very often you lose control of yourself, like often you become furious, you have tantrums very regularly, put it this way, Islam will say you got to do something with it. Okay, read Quran, study, make ablution, pray. Or if still these things don't help you because they're not very obvious techniques to control your anger, then you might be prescribed by your sheikh or someone who takes care of you, your guardian, a proper, we say, prescription, yeah, medicine or remedy to stop doing that and to start being in control of your anger, to control it. And even if that is, like, uh, I'm not saying imprisoning you, but enrolling you in a course, which doesn't have to be formal, anger management course. What it means is that, oh, the guardian, the father, the mom or uncle, whoever is in charge of you or whoever can help you, says to you, okay, as much as you can go to this and this and that course, or go to this and that institution, usually it's a masjid, mosque or a college, and study there a little bit more about traditions like these, or accompany a person who is known for their patience, who is known to be in control of themselves. Like, we for years and years haven't heard that so and so had a tantrum, or that got mad, or was very furious and angry and lost control of themselves. So you accompany such people until this good hal, the good, let's say, trait of patience and controlling your anger, it's called وَالْكَاظِمِينَ الْغَيْظِ, is transferred onto you. Like you see and you feel the effects of that. And that's what we call tarbiyah, okay? Upbringing, yeah, nurturing. So basically, you do something to nurture this good quality of yours, which is patience, the best quality ever that you can have. And on the other hand, you subdue, you basically press down the anger in you. You chain it, you lock it. That's what it means. So that's why I didn't want to say, oh, you got to go to jail to learn how to be patient and to control your anger, because you won't have opportunities to express your anger. Not like that, but what it really means is, like, you will fast, or you will, for example, sometimes people's anger is related to their food discipline. Like, they're not eating their meals as they should at regular intervals and properly, or erratic sleep. So, in fact, most doctors will tell you, okay, psychiatrists or psychologists, they'll say it's all to do with erratic sleep, like irregular sleeping behavior. People who don't sleep when they should be sleeping, or sleep less, oof, they have disproportionate anger, they say, or even disproportionate fear. Okay, and that's all. That's what, you don't even need to call it anxiety and stress or depression. Just call it disproportionate fear, disproportionate happiness, disproportionate anger. That's what anxiety and depression and stress is all about. Okay, that's what it is. So basically, uh, you just need to remember that Islam is asking you to work on yourself. And if you recognize and see or realize that you have issues with your anger, you're not in control of it, the anger in a way takes over whenever there is an opportunity to express it, and you more or less lose your mind, or become enraged, that really means that you got to do something, and Islam has asked you, like ordered you, to do something about it, because the consequences could be severe, not just for yourself as an individual, that you will harm someone or yourself and then end up being in a place you don't want to be, or in a position that you don't want to be, but the real danger is that if you're not in control of your anger, you might really harm other people. You understand? And then you will regret it for the rest of your life. So for this very reason, Islam basically is asking us to nourish the opposite traits of anger, hilm and sabr. That's why this hadith obviously came in the book on patience. So this is what it is. So there are so many scholars say evil effects of anger, let's say bad effects of anger, physical, they say, biological, really is like that, biologically. Like, don't you think if you are angry every now and then, like you have a tantrum, that's not going to affect your brain, your emotions? Something will not happen to your body actually as well. It will be messed up. You won't have the exact let's say numbers of minerals and this and that. No, it will be all in a way messed up. It will be very difficult for your body. You might actually have problems with your heart soon. And lots of people do. People who have these issues, it leads to other problems like heart issues. They become heart patients or even brain patients. Yeah, it's like stroke can happen. So there are lots of physical or biological evil effects of, of not controlling our anger, but especially mental or psychological. So psychologically, it will have a toll on us effect. And then, of course, when all this is added up together, it affects our communities, our society as a whole, like at large. Because if there are more people who are known for their anger or not in control of their anger, everyone will suffer. Our whole system basically will suffer. So, socially speaking, basically, it's a must as well, like for the sake of society, let's say, not for the individual reasons, but for the communal reasons. Yeah, ijtimaiyan, Islam is basically always going to prefer, we say, public benefit over an individual benefit. So for the sake of everyone, yeah, the people, yeah, in general, yeah, for the common good, we say Islam is asked everyone to basically uh, train themselves, do everything they need to control their anger. Even if it really means nothing to do with embarrassment. In fact, it's beautiful if I found out that someone, and I actually know a lot of people in our community who have issues with anger. Either they tell me about it, or when they tell me what they do and how they behave, I conclude that, and I tell them, it seems, brother or sister, you have problems with your anger management. And then if somebody came to me and said, Sheikh, I enrolled on this course, I'm trying to improve, my skills and my temper, how to behave and control my anger, I will say, MashaAllah, I might actually buy them a coffee or something. I'll be so pleased and happy. It's the opposite of being ashamed in your community if people find out that you are doing something about your anger. It's good. It may encourage another person to also join the same course, if it's a real course, and I know there are courses like that. It doesn't have to be a very formal course, like I said. It could be even a very informal course, techniques and things like dhikr. Somebody suggested, why don't we do weekly dhikr? You come to a mosque and just move your head a little bit here and there, or recite some phrases which are noble and good. It may make you much more calmer. Yeah, calmer. Things like that. So if you need to do that every week, and you feel like that if you don't go to a dhikr, you're not the same person, then go. Something like that. Or take a shower rather than wudu before you pray. Makes your prayer better. Take shower every time until your prayer is better, even with wudu, for example. So things like that people can do, inshallah, to be in control of their anger and to become better persons. They will benefit individually themselves. Everyone who is in close proximity or contact with them will immediately benefit, and then even the society as a whole will benefit, because there'll be no incidents or scandals that will unfold from a person who keeps their composure and who keeps calm. I'm so sorry, I didn't believe it will take me this long to explain this short hadith, but I would rather explain it properly than rush through it and then leave you in a limbo, or you might not be able to make these kinds of conclusions. So, Alhamdulillah, I'm happy to end here with this hadith, and I really want to read another hadith in the next 10-15 minutes. Inshallah, we'll try to explain this one as well. So, listen again, this in Arabic we read first. It's 22nd hadith of this chapter, yeah, on patience. So, mashallah, it's one of the biggest chapters of the book. وعن سليمان ibn سرد رضي الله عنه قال. So this is the first time we have a hadith from this Sahabi, or Abu Huraira. We had several so far. He said, كنت جالسا مع النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم ورجلان يستبان وأحدهما قد احمر وجهه وانتفخت أوداجه، فقال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم: إني لأعلم كلمة لو قالها لذهب عنه ما يجد، لو قال أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم ذهب منه ما يجد. فقالوا له: إن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال تعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. متفق عليه. So listen to this hadith. It's not very long hadith. Sulaiman ibn Surad radiallahu anhu reported, he said, I was sitting once with the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam when two men, Sahabis, they began to argue, and they even started cursing each other, and the face of one of them turned red. Okay, And he said even the veins on his neck, the blood, yeah, they became swollen from this anger or rage. You can see that when somebody is really furious. Oh my goodness, you know how as I told you how hard the heart needs to work. Heart pumps. Oh, probably is dangerous. You know, to have fits like this is dangerous. So we saw that, okay, on people, ourselves, okay. So he said this is how he described it. The Messenger of Allah saw it as well. And then he said, I know of a word, if this guy were to say it, if this man were to utter this phrase, yeah, his anger, his rage would vanish, disappear. And the phrase is, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. He should have said, I seek refuge with Allah from shaitan, the rejected one. So they, the Sahaba, said to him, Sahaba قالوا فقالوا له. They said, the Prophet is telling you, look, the Prophet tells you to say this word. Yeah, so the Prophet said, إن النبي قال أو قال لك تعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. Seek refuge with Allah from shaitan, the rejected one. An interesting account, really, an interesting story. Once again, muttafaqun alayh, which means Bukhari and Muslim recorded this incident or this hadith or account or report in their respective works. So Bukhari has this right, in the beginning of his book, in the book Bad il Khalq, means the beginning of creation, the creation. And where did he include this? He included this in a chapter which talks about shaitan, obviously, Iblis. So he said, this hadith says something, it says something about shaitan and his traits, basically, and what he does to people, all right? And how we can basically protect ourselves from him and his army or soldiers. But he also included it in good manners, because uh, once you see that you are beginning to lose control of your anger, you obviously have this beautiful phrase, technique, pill. Let's say it's the pill which you don't need to swallow. You don't need to find a cup and water to drink. It just needs to click in your brain and you say, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم, and it acts fast. A paracetamol takes half an hour to bring your temperature down if you didn't know. But this one works instantly, it seems. So Imam al-Bukhari said, this obviously becomes part of our good manners, like in adab. Yeah, if you want to learn good etiquettes, you should know this. And you should also learn that it's against good manners, as I said, to do what? To argue with someone else, or to call them names, and na'uzu billah, he said, or to curse someone, al-la'an. And then also he included it in another chapter, again, obviously, the chapter on anger, okay? Trying to avoid your anger or to control your anger. Muslim included it in the same book like the previous hadith, the book of righteous deeds or righteousness. And then he said in the same chapter that he included the hadith that we just read, but he said here we have a technique or something that we can say or use to remove the anger, he said, or basically to control the anger, I should say better. So very useful even to read where they recorded this hadith. Now, let me look at the language of this hadith. The last one had only one term, which was not too difficult, but it was a nice one to point out. Here we have more than one term which I want to point out. First is this term at the beginning, رجلان يستبان, أي يسب بعضهم بعض, or كل منهما صاحبه. So this is a verb in dual form, which I think is rarely used. Okay, the Sahabi, this Sulaiman ibn Surad, mentioned it basically. The more common is يسبان بعضهم بعض. So this must be a dialect or a very particular way of saying it. So because of that, it needs clarification really. So what it means, يسب بعضهم بعض in pure Arabic. In English, obviously, it was well translated, I have to say. They started arguing, but instead of just saying a quarrel or an argument, yasubu means really like to call each other a name, like insulting each other. So when you say I argued with someone, it doesn't necessarily mean you insulted them. Yes, if you begin arguing with someone, you're already belittling them because you're not accepting their position in a way, but not necessarily. You could maybe have a polite argument or a civilized argument or quarrel. But when you basically insult someone, there is no other interpretation but to say you hurt their feelings because you used inappropriate words. Okay, and this term, in my opinion, is closer to insulting one another. They were insulting one another. And how I know that it's more probably because if they went on to curse one another, you're not going to move from a polite argument with someone into cursing them. Do you understand what I'm saying? So this whole explanation came from this term. And it really means يَسُبُّ بَعْضُهُمْ بَعْض, and sabab is used in the Quran, in many hadiths as well, and it's a term which is much more common than this verb. Another term which is really hard, like أوداجه, where did he say? Yeah, وانتفخت أوداجه. I don't know many Arabs who will understand this. Really, I'm talking about Arabs, okay? أوداجه in dictionary النهاية, okay? He says الأوداج ما أحاط بالعنق من العروق التي يقطعها الذابح and واحدها ودج. So what is this? In Arabic, even obviously now I've explained it in Arabic. So here in English translation, it's very good. Okay, I really have to say he done a very good job. So what he said is, he said, إحمر وجهه is a very common phrase. Once face turns red, it's every culture, I think every language has this. When somebody is angry or shy, the face color changes into red, isn't it? We know. We even say like إحمر وجهه. We don't even say anything else. We just say he became red. Yeah, his face turned red. So the other one is the veins of his neck. So the jugular vein. See? So the reason why he didn't say only حبل, because وَنَحْنُ أَقْرَبُ إِلَيْهِ مِنْ حَبْلِ الْوَرِيدِ, because الحبل الوريد is the one main jugular vein. But here he didn't say it in singular form. If he said وَانْتَفَخَتْ and then he used the singular form وَدْجُهُ, then we will say his jugular vein, obviously was enlarged, which means the blood, there was so much oxygen or blood there. But it didn't happen like that. It was not only that vein, but it was a number of them. So in that case, I really think the translation is very good. So basically what it means is the veins of which are on our neck, here, all of those, and on this side, both. And one term in Arabic means all of that. Can you believe it? So that's a difficult one. So what what it means is that that's the biological reaction I was just talking about, the physical reaction of somebody becoming angry. Okay, now أعوذ is a term which scholars pointed out, but we know that it means seeking refuge. But what it actually means, because not everybody knows ta'awudh in Arabic language, what it means. This is why the scholars say, explain to them, tell them what does it mean, أعوذ. What it means is ألجأ وأعتصم. In Arabic, it means ألجأ, I seek refuge. Because when you say, like, one day I was a muhajir, a refugee. I had to leave our house and go in another town in Bosnia to live because my house was in between the lines, in no man's land. So I was seeking refuge in somewhere else, somebody else's house, or was looking for a new home. So this ta'awudh actually means seeking a new place, seeking a refuge. Alja'u means luju. In Arabic language today, how do they call the refugees now, like from the Middle East? Al-laji'un, luju. Okay, it's in Quran, of course, as well. So a'udhu means alja'u, I seek refuge. We're not only seeking refuge, wa'a'tasimu. So you seek refuge and you rely on that refuge. So basically it means that you seek refuge in it and you found support in it. That's what ta'awudh means in language. So this is why you should know that. When you say a'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, you seek refuge with Allah, from Allah, okay, but better to say with Allah in my opinion, because then we seek refuge from something. So we shouldn't say from twice. In English, I'm saying. But in Arabic is no problem because we say bi and then min. A'udhu billahi, with Allah. Mina shaitan rajim definitely means from. So, subhanallah, I sought refuge, shelter, in the best place that gives shelter, the most reliable source of support, that is Allah. So ta'awudh, of course, is going to be an amazing pill because you say, A'udhu billahi, you got to mean it. You are basically calling upon Allah to help you to control your anger or to help you from something or someone. And what it is here? Shaitan. Mina shaitan rajim. Because clearly the hadith says, and the Prophet told us, anger or us getting angry is related to shaitan. Basically, shaitan strikes, in other words, when we lose our temper. Shaitan strikes. Losing our temper also means losing control of yourself. Doesn't necessarily just mean when you get angry or too sad, like disproportionate sadness. It also means disproportionate joy. You can't go laughing and laughing and laughing yourself out, like you laughing too much. We can see too loud all the time. Why? That is when shaitan strikes as well. So when you are too sad, too angry, and too happy, shaitan will strike. And that's what we call mania, isn't it? Maniac episode. Why would they go all the way, na'uzu billah, to do self-harm? Because shaitan strikes them hardest. They are so low. Yeah, you are on the other, on the scale, on 1 to 10, the maniac, okay, the people who are on 10, 9 and 10, they are overconfident, isn't it? They hear voices which don't exist, hallucination or illusions. So they may claim to be a prophet or very superhuman. But the low, they think they are worthless, they are nothing, they are no one, they don't even exist. So basically it's the opposite. Shaitan attacks hard on the top and on the bottom very hard. So people need to know this, and as soon as they feel that they are losing control of themselves, whether it's in high, yeah, or low, we say A'udhu billahi minash shaitan rajim, at least kick shaitan out of the picture. And then if it's just biological reaction and that's why you're sad or depressed, or biological reaction and that's why you are behaving like a maniac, then at least we will control that with water or sitting down or a pill, and we will be able to control ourselves. But shaitan is not there. So it's a very powerful basically remedy that we should basically have always with us and be conscious of it, and know that ta'awudh is not just said before we read Quran. Ta'awudh is not just said here and there. Ta'awudh should be said as much as possible, especially when we feel that we are losing control of ourselves, becoming angry. So that's also a term which needed to be clarified. Ar-Rajim, okay. Ar-Rajim, I know that you all know now what it means, but Rajim, it's something different, okay? So Ar-Rajim means the outcast or rejected, okay? Or the accursed. Sometimes they say accursed, the reason is because outcast and rejected really means that someone lacks the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or there is no mercy of Allah covering so and so or something. That's why we say it's rejected, like left alone. So na'uzu billah, when someone is left alone, it means that Allah's mercy didn't shower it, didn't cover it. Okay, so it is fa'il bima'na maf'ul. So basically it's a participle active, but in the meaning of participle passive. So it has to be translated basically and understood in the passive form. What it means is ba'id min rahmatillah, someone who is far away from the mercy of Allah, na'uzu billah. So it really means like la'na, curse. So that's why in English translations and even in Arabic, when somebody is described as ar-rajim, it almost means, almost synonymous to mal'oon, or yeah, something like that. So in English they translate it as a cursed as well. Apart from this, I cannot see anything else difficult in the language. Let's go through some of the benefits or lessons of this hadith. There's at least two I would like to share with you. So, in the event of rage, if a person becomes conscious that what he or she is feeling is a suggestion, a waswasa from shaitan, then the one should say ta'awudh to prevent oneself from listening to it. Okay? So this conscious is the best remedy, which is the phrase A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, to overcome the rage, it seems. Okay? So what some people say is, people who know that they are easily infuriated, means they easily get angry, they should definitely make this as a must remedy for them, or basically make use of this prescription. So I'm talking a little bit in a medical term, I hope people are not offended, but the reason why I'm saying that is because it really works like that. It's not just a phrase which doesn't have an effect on us biologically or psychologically, mentally, and then even spiritually. Because every time we mention Allah's name, and in ta'awudh there is the mention of Allah's name, it of course is going to uplift us spiritually as well, because you remembered Allah. So remembering Allah often is again another obligation for believing men and women. So therefore it makes sense to me to say this. So this hadith is in line with the verse from the Quran. This is another point that we can make. In line with the verse in the Quran from Surah Al-A'raf, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, and actually there is an ayah very similar to it in Surah Fussilat, but this one from Surah Al-A'raf is very explicit, where he says, أستعيذ بالله وإما ينزغنك من الشيطان نزغ فاستعذ بالله إنه سميع عليم. So whenever you feel, as soon as you feel that there is this, it's called nazgh rather than waswasa actually. So there's like a pinch or infiltration from shaitan, like shaitan is basically adding to your adrenaline, like shaitan is making your heart pump harder or blood flow more into your veins. So he wants you to be so angry, so furious, yeah, very tempered. So as soon as you feel that you are becoming angry, okay, upset, furious, you basically need to resort to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by saying this ta'awudh. So the Quran said, فَاسْتَعِذْ بِاللَّهِ, seek refuge with Allah from that. Yeah, from that. إِنَّهُ سَمِيعٌ عَلِيمٌ, indeed Allah is all hearing. He's going to hear you. He's going to hear you say this word, utter the phrase. And He is all knowing, all knowing. So this basically is in line with the hadith is in line with the ayah, and we basically know that. So again, to reiterate another point is that al-ghadabu yurithuhu ash-shaytan. So it seems that there is a clear link, an obvious link between getting angry and shaitan, yeah, being influencing you or being present in order to make your condition worse. So if this is the case, then basically there will be lots of harms, okay, not one harm, maybe more, that will affect your religious affairs, your religion, and maybe even your worldly life. So that's why in order to put an end to that, to stop it, to cut it at the root, at the cause of it, basically to end the waswasas and nazgh of shaitan, we seek refuge with Allah from shaitan, and Allah helps us, and at least we no longer can hear the influence of shaitan, his whisperings, or we don't feel him adding to the fuel, the fire, because there's also this connection in hadith between shaitan and the way the blood streams through our veins. So in a way there is a connection with this, or it's something to do with temper. But I don't want you to understand that hadith, shaitan yajri majra dam, as if he literally is in our blood vessels. No, not like that. Shaitan doesn't necessarily, like I said, even jinn, they don't necessarily enter our body when we are possessed or feel like we are possessed. What it means is that you hear the vesicles clearer and clearer, and they're having more and more and more effect on you. But it's your brain which is responding and listening to it, obeying it. Therefore, you basically need to do something to stop, to cut the connection. That's a bad influence, a bad connection for you, so put an end to it. And finally, I'll just end the circle as well here, inshallah. So in this hadith, we learn how eager the Prophet ﷺ, the Messenger of Allah, was to provide guidance, teaching, also a training, okay, or a prescription, a remedy to his followers, to people, okay, in general, but especially to the Sahaba and people who follow him, the Muslims. In every possible occasion, whenever he could, he acted as a teacher, okay? He acted basically as someone who will basically train you and show you how to behave and what to say or what to do or how to do something so that it helps you to become a better person. It basically, he will give you a prescription to improve your manners, okay? So we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He helps us to read more and more of these ahadith so that we know what are the remedies and prescriptions which our beloved Prophet prescribed for our good, for us to improve our inner traits, for us to improve our manners, for us to become better and stronger people. I also pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the right understanding of those traditions and to equip us with so much patience and sabr and forbearance so that we can control our anger in all difficult situations. But we also pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive us our sins and our mistakes, because we probably got angry so many times in our lifetime and hurt so many people and shouted at so many people. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive us whatever wrong we have done to those people, and we ask them to pardon us, to forgive us if we ever hurt them, and so that inshallah ta'ala we basically regret it, and then next time we feel like we feel ashamed and we don't want to repeat the same outburst, but rather we would like to remember to say A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim and control our fury and our anger so that people around us are not abused by us or hurt by us as much as they otherwise could be if we are not in control of ourselves. I also pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us the highest levels in Jannah, in the company of our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and other prophets and messengers and other righteous and good people. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله العظيم لي ولكم فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. سبحانك اللهم نستغفرك ونتوب إليك ونصلي ونسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. جزاكم الله خير. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. إلى اللقاء.